Hey guys, I just wanted to do my review for The Flash Season 2, Episode 14, Escape from Earth-2. This is like the part 2 of the, this Earth, Journey to Earth-2 storyline, and it starts off with Zoom running around the city, like causing these little explosions and setting fires to places around central city of Earth-2 and conveniently handing out flyers and burning messages with fire on buildings saying "Bring me Wells," since he knows after through presumably through reverb and after capturing Barry, he knows that Wells is back on Earth too, and he hasn't come alone, and so basically Wells sees this on TV. He tells Dr. Hewitt to lock down the building. Cisco manages to come back and give him basically a recap of what happened in the last episode. And then they decide they need to free Earth-2 Barry in order to, because they're going to need all the help they can get to find their Barry and Jesse. But then, of course, Zoom gets into the Star Labs building. The cops try to stop him and fail, and Zoom attacks Hewitt, forcing him to tell them where Wells is. And it turns out for some reason, Harrison Wells has his own time vault / braille room, which it just seems like, okay. I mean, they mentioned this in season 1, and that was something that wasn't even on the blueprints for the Earth-1 Star Labs, and that was just there for Eobard Thawne, and it's they're trying to make him similar to a darker character like Eobard Thawne, yet not evil, and yet he just seems to have this, I don't know, it's just kind of, and just had he has his own time vault, and he wears the black rimmed glasses, and I don't know. It's just kind of weird that the little parallels they're trying to draw between Eobard Wells, quote unquote, is who I'm calling it, and Harrison Wells' Earth-2. But anyway, Zoom phases through a wall trying to find them, but Harry uses this gun to create creates the illusion that there's another wall in front of them, so Zoom can't see them. And of course, they have to shut up Earth-2 Barry because he's being frantic and panicky. And at first, I was annoyed that he was gonna. At first, I was annoyed with him because I figured he was gonna be this uptight, dorky guy and persnickety and whatnot. And I think that there was also the scene, especially during the scene where they meet up with Earth-2 Iris and they explain the situation to him, and he says things about the doppelganger wait, he got frisky with you? I'm gonna have a word with him, and just sort of just playing up, and sort of just Grant Gustin's just playing up the whole, uptight, this kind of uptight, uber dorky Barry, and even the part later on in the episode where they have to climb a mountain to get to Zoo, and it's really, I'm not complaining, but I'm not sure I can do this. I'm wearing wingtips here. I don't have much tread. And just the fact that he's kind of running, he runs really nerdy when they're being attacked by Killer Frost. It was just it just made it. I mean, besides the fact that you wonder what Earth-2 Iris even really saw in the guy, because it didn't seem like it was implied that prior to. I mean, I guess she was attracted to the really dorky, nerdy types, but until then, it doesn't seem. And prior to this episode's events, it didn't seem like Earth-2 Barry really wanted to step up to the plate in terms of grew repair until this episode. Really, is the I don't know. I mean, kind of mean, but you just feel this episode where Earth-2 Barry kind of grew a pair. He figures, and he says himself later in the episode to Earth-1 Barry that I need to prove to myself and my wife that I can, I'll be able to do the impossible. So he accompanies, even though you can tell by Harry and Cisco's reaction, it's okay, this guy's gonna be the load. Please don't come with us. When they tell him don't. When they turn down his when they say no and object to him coming along, Barry insists, and for Iris' sake and for Joe's sake, and to honor Joe's memory, that he does. And so they're able to ambush and after a brief fight with Killer Frost, they're able to finally ambush her at gunpoint and try to convince her that, Zoom even though you have to be loyal, she's afraid that Zoom will kill her if she's not loyal to him. If she doesn't maintain her loyalty to him, they try to appeal to her, her love for Ronnie or Deathstorm on this Earth-2, that she died, that Zoom killed him, and how on any Earth Caitlin is a caretaker and would loves the people in her life deeply, and she would try to, I guess, avenge them no matter what. A speech like that, something to that effect, is from Cisco. So she creates I don't know, like an ice slide or some kind of ice structure. I mean, it looked like an ice slide. I thought it didn't look like a stairs to even climb up to the top of the mountain or the hideout of Zoom's lair. But in the meantime, Earth-1 Barry's trapped in a cell that he can't phase through because of the fact that Earth Fiber is at a different frequency. He's trapped there with Jesse Wells, who just feels like, she's been there for months, and so naturally she just feels like there's no way that any of them are getting out of there. But then Barry can, able to lift her spirits and say how Harry does everything that Harry's done, immoral or not, has been for her sake, and that Harry says that he believes that she's smarter than he is. And so there's also a man in an iron mask tapping on the glass, and everybody online speculated this was Morse code, but it turns out Barry recognizes it as another kind of military grid code that POWs use. And so they're able, and using the tapping, he's able to spell out the name Jay. And Barry asks if he's referring to Jay Garrick, and he says that he's on Earth-1, alive. And apparently the guy in the Iron Mask starts freaking out and banging his head against the wall. And there's this brief shot where you can tell he has blonde hair. So I guess based on the news of that, it kind of complicates the mystery further as to whether or not if Jay Garrick is who he says he is, if he's maybe working. You think is Jay Garrick who he says he is? Is he working for Zoom? Is he the man in the Iron Mask, the real Jay Garrick, and the Jay Garrick on Earth-1 now is just another doppelganger from another Earth? I mean, there's plenty of theories now, and this is what I liked about. At least this is a step in the right direction towards complicating the mystery. For Zoom, because it just feels like they're just kind of dragging on the whole mystery, just because it seemed like the writers kind of like the idea of they care more about the fact of making Zoom the Joker to Barry's Batman rather than try to complicate the mystery, or at least make him more a complex character. And what they're doing this episode, at least it was a step in the right direction towards doing more than just that. Then of course, before they get more information from the man in the Iron Mask, Zoom comes back, faces through the glass, and starts beating the shit out of Barry, and then leaves again. And Barry is having trouble phasing through the wall because like before, he can't phase through he can't phase through because of the different frequencies on the Earth. But then when Harry and company arrive, Earth-2 Barry is able to give Earth-1 Barry a pep talk saying that he's been able to do the impossible and stuff, or do things he never thought he could do. And he says, "I'm just Barry Allen, but you're the Flash. So if I can do the impossible, so can you. Certainly you can," and which gives Barry the courage to finally, use his abilities to face through the wall. And then Harry proceeds to free Jesse with Killer Frost, breaking the chains to the shackles. But it turns out Killer Frost had actually tipped off Zoom, that they were showing up and that the whole thing was a trap. But then at the last second, as Zoom is about to kill Jesse, just to make Harry, just so Harry can watch her die, she comes into the last. She pulls like a Darth Vader Return of the Jedi moment and decides to use her powers to freeze Zoom and stall him long enough. And even though he's trying to like break through all the ice, she stalls him long enough for everybody to escape, saying it's the man in the iron mask, since, Barry's convinced they don't have time to rescue him, even though he promises to come back for him. And meanwhile on Earth-1, there's a couple. There's still like all this news of destruction of Central City because, Jay Garrick still hasn't been able to get his speed back, and of course Barry's still on Earth-1, so there's nobody really to protect the city from Geomancer. And so he calls out, but Geomancer calls out Jay on the news, and uses his powers to force a building to collapse. Caitlin says that Velocity 8 is only going to cause his cells to degenerate more and die faster, but she's able to make Velocity 9 and inject it into Jay, that he's back to full power, and like he temporarily gets his speed back and is able to rescue everybody from the collapsing building, which apparently just, I don't know, it was like 15 stories. It could have been like 10, 15 stories, and it only contained 3 people he had to rescue. And, but then Caitlin also discovers that the cells are the Velocity 9 is not only causing his cells to regenerate, and even though it's only temporary, she says it could be a means of helping him get his powers back. Because I didn't mention this in my previous review, but the serum wasn't the source of his powers. He was connected to the Speed Force. It's just that he used the Velocity 6 to increase his speed because he wasn't feel like in order to keep up with Zoom, but it ended up not only sapping his powers but also was also causing him to die as well. But Geomancer inexplicably walks into Star Labs and starts trying to wreck the place, and Geomancer's about to kill Iris, but then Caitlin's able to grab like the boot, which is something Cisco used on Atom Smasher in the season 2 premiere to nullify Geomancer's powers and allow Joe to come and arrest him and take him to the metahuman part of Iron Heights, which is kind of cool that it was like Kate, it was an Earth-1 Caitlin, and Earth-1 Caitlin was able to save the day and beat the bad guy without the Flash's help. And another thing I liked about the episode is, there's kind of like Earth-2. It was very Earth-2 Barry, Earth-2 Caitlin centric episode, which is pretty, and you basically get to see how at first even regardless of what Earths they're on, who they are fundamentally, in spite of the different circumstances, doesn't change, and at least for them, deep down when push comes to shove, what they are fundamentally, Barry, at least in Barry and Caitlin's case, regardless of any Earth, are still the same. Although it kind of doesn't hold much water. Although it kind of contradicts, Reverb, Cisco and Ronnie's doppelgangers, which is kind of, so there's a bit of an inconsistency in that theme, contradictory theme there. And also, my other gripe about the episode was the fact that they introduced Tony. I think his name is Tony Bell as the new editor-in-chief at Picture News. I thought they're going to wait till episode 16, Trajectory, to introduce him, because as I mentioned in the as they showed in the Zoom is Coming sizzle reel, that he was going to be like the J. Jonah Jameson of the Flash. And that was just kind of weird to introduce him here. Just there's already like a lot going on, but I guess they just needed. But because he just was there to tell Iris, "Oh, I'm not going to publish your piece on the Flash and the Geomancer because it's a puff piece," and I was going to say how, "Oh, the Flash is unreliable. He's not going to be there to save us." And Iris offers to interview Jay Garrick instead, just so he won't kill her story, and he agrees. Which, like, again, it just felt a little bit like unnecessary, because it just felt like there's already enough going on. But I guess they just wanted to give Iris something. They just need to get something. Earth-1 Iris something to do. And considering how the whole Geomancer situation played out, she just told Jay she had everything she needed for her article. But that was kind of like, it was a somewhat needless subplot in my opinion. And also the fact was kind of misleading. Was also like misleading about the Zoom scissor reel, is that it was implied that Zoom was going to unmask himself while Barry, in front of Barry, while they were both still in his lair, and we didn't get to see any of that, but we did get to see, Harry, Jesse, and Barry go back to Barry, and so, did I mention him? Harry, Barry, Cisco, and Jesse escaped back to Earth-1. The Earth-2 versions of Barry and Iris went to Atlantis to go hide from Zoom. And as soon as they went through, Jay threw the device that was supposed to close the breach, which conveniently took longer to close than the other breaches around Central City. And like an idiot, he decides to stand in front of the breach as it's closing, to the point where it gives Zoom just enough time to put his arm through the portal, impale Jay, and pull his body back through, presumably killing him. Of course, given the whole clue earlier in the episode about what's going on with Jay, I mean, now it still leaves you wondering like whether he was a good guy or a bad guy, and it still leaves some questions unanswered. I mean, you still felt bad that he got killed, because you felt like he really got a moment to shine. You feel like, at least in these last two episodes, he really got his moment to shine and feel like useful. So at least there was enough like resonance to. You felt like I felt bad enough personally that he got killed, but at the same time, it's like it was kind of an idiot move to just sort of stand there in front of the portal, just knowing like, okay, something bad's gonna happen. But I give this episode an 8.5 out of 10. Definitely not as good as last week's episode, but I wasn't going into this episode expecting it to be as good. But just because of the whole novelty of being on this Earth-2 was not going to be the same, since you were familiarized with it from last week's episode. But overall, still a pretty good episode. I'm really hoping they reveal Zoom's identity soon. I mean, obviously they're still not going to end this multiverse storyline anytime. They're not going to end this multiverse storyline right away, just because of what happened with the guy in the Iron Mask, and the Flash is going to be appearing on Supergirl, thanks to this whole. Going to be appearing on Supergirl at the end of March, so maybe Zoom goes to Kara's Earth or something like that. That would be a pretty cool storyline, actually. But what do you guys think of the episode? How do you feel like compared to last week's episode? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this episode, like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.